Hey, what's going on everybody? This is going to be a video about Path of Exile 2's Endgame, and I want to make this more for beginners. Endgame in any video game out there could be a little bit intimidating, but with Path of Exile, because of so many customization options and the way that you play the game, the endgame could be a little bit more tricky, so I'm going to try and break it down as simple as possible. But what the best part about Path of Exile 2 is, like I've said in previous videos, is that they're going to try and simplify and stream it to welcome new players. Now, before you get to the end game, obviously, since this game is going to be in early access on December 6th, you're going to have to go through the full campaign. Instead of focusing on the campaign, the developers decided that they're going to spend the bulk of their time perfecting and balancing Path of Exile 2's endgame. And since this is early access, you're going to be playing through acts 1, 2, and 3. When the game officially launches, it will have 6 acts. So for the original Path of Exile, whenever you played the game, you had to go through the 3 playable acts and replay them 3 times before you hit the endgame. And that was normal mode, cruel mode, and merciless mode. For early access, you're going to need to complete the cruel mode before you get to the end game. What they're saying is for normal mode, it's going to take around 25 hours to complete it, and then cruel mode is going to be a lot more faster to get your character stronger. And that's going to give you a ton of content before you hit end game, but just as a heads up, end game is going to have a ton of content. Don't let that intimidate you. I'm about to break down all of the end game that we know about so far. Once you get to the end game, you're going to get introduced to the Atlas. The Atlas is an infinite map that expands in every direction, and this is going to be your main end game system that you're going to explore. You're going to see a lot of things on this map, but let me break them down for you. First, you're going to see these blue portals, gray portals, and green portals all across the ground. The blue portals will let you know where on the map you could currently access. The gray portals let you know what you could progress towards, and the green portals let you know what you've already completed. While you're exploring this map, you're going to do things like clear corruption that's affecting the world. You're going to obtain a whole bunch of loot and then also fight powerful monsters. In Path of Exile 1, you'd find maps that are droppable items, and then you could choose what maps to run. While doing that, you'll get more gear, fight powerful monsters, etc. In Path of Exile 2, these maps are already going to be on the Atlas, but how you get inside of them is going to be very cool. Let's talk about the waystones. To enter a map, you're going to have a waystone, and on each waystone will be a tier. Each tier is going to dictate how difficult the map will be. That means tougher monsters, but what that also means is you'll get more XP and better loot when you have a higher tiered waystone. Something else to note, you could also craft waystones. Crafting is a big deal in Path of Exile 2, but I'll save that for another video. Depending on how difficult the map is, the more likely that the waystones will drop. And you also have a chance of waystones dropping of a higher tier as well. But crafting waystones is going to be a huge way of you keeping the supply of your waystones and obtaining higher tier drops. And also on waystones, you're going to see things like prefixes and suffixes. Prefixes will increase the rewards of your map, while suffixes increase the danger of your map. In PoE 2, you're going to have a lot of map mechanics as well. You'll have ones like precursor artifacts. PoE 1, they were called shrines. These are areas of the map that monsters will gather around. When you defeat all the monsters in that area, you'll get a temporary buff. You'll have strong boxes. These strong boxes are going to be filled with nothing but monsters and loot. They also have modifiers as well. So when you open a strong box, you might get a monster that has a buff on it, and it'll apply a debuff onto you. When you clear that strong box, you'll get the loot that's inside of it. You'll also have essences. You'll find a monster trapped in a crystal. When you release that monster and you defeat them, they'll drop essences, then you could use those essences for crafting. Those essences guarantee a certain type of a modifier onto them. They'll be very crucial for crafting. So how do you progress in the Atlas? Well, the easiest way is for you to complete a map. Go in there, defeat all the monsters, get your loot, get your XP. But if you do die in that map, you can no longer run that map and you must go around the portal. Now here's where it gets interesting. Now again, like all things in Path of Exile 2, there will be a skill tree, but do not let that intimidate you. When you progress through the Atlas and you defeat the bigger maps or the more difficult maps, you're going to start to unlock Atlas passive skill points. What happens is those points allow you to increase the level of difficulty and danger in which you'll get a big reward for it. Path of Exile 2 will want to reward you based on the difficulty that you're taking in. When you put points into the tree, you could decide to give yourself more rares when you go into a map, more essences, more strong boxes, harder monsters, more monsters. This is going to be very interesting because then now you have control over what the difficulty is from a passive level through a skill tree, and I think that's great. What you'll notice when you look through your Atlas is you're going to see a fog of war. So that will show us the next mechanic on the atlas, which is very important, which is the towers. When you find a tower and you complete a tower, it'll give you more visibility on your atlas. Now, what's the difference between maps on Path of Exile 1 and Path of Exile 2 is that in Path of Exile 2, not every map will have a boss. Developers say 1 in 4 maps will have a boss. So when you run into them, they will be difficult. You will have the option to avoid a boss, but I'll never do that. I'll always say just go and try to fight the boss, get the loot, get the XP. After looking and researching more and more on the atlas, I think it's going to be a very rewarding way to experience Endgame, but there's more. There will be mechanics and systems within the atlas that will add to your Endgame experience. During early access, there will be 7 Endgame systems, and out of those 7, 5 will have sections on the atlas skill tree. I will be going over each of these here briefly, but in the future, I will definitely have videos that will break down each of them in detail. First, you have the breach. When you activate the breach, monsters are going to start rushing you, all coming from a different dimension. The faster that you defeat them, the more the breach extends. Monsters from the breach are going to drop breach rings and catalysts. Breach rings, according to developers, are going to be some of the most powerful rings in the game. And then you have catalysts, which will act as a currency item. Catalysts can buff up certain modifiers or give special qualities to your rings as well. The next mechanic is the ritual. On these maps, you'll find altars. When you kill a monster near that altar, they'll be sacrificed essentially. When you activate that altar, those monsters will get revived, and when you defeat those monsters, you're gonna get this thing called tribute. You can exchange your tribute at the altar for rewards. Now here's the kicker. Each map will contain multiple altars. At the last altar, all the sacrifices that you have from previous altars combine. Then you'll fight a whole bunch of monsters, get a bunch of tribute, and then get more rewards. You'll also get omens. These are rewards that you get with your tribute. These act as crafting items. And with omens, you'll be allowed to metacraft. What that means is you'll be able to craft really powerful items. Another mechanic is called delirium. In delirium maps, you're gonna find a mirror. When that mirror is activated, you're gonna spawn a mist. And then you guessed it, monsters are gonna come out. The deeper that you dive into the mists, the more rewards you get. Like with all things PoE 2, the longer that you're in there, the more difficult the enemies are. You do have an option to leave whenever you would like. It's gonna be a button right next to your mana bar. Or you can just literally stop moving and it will end the encounter. Delirium encounters will drop distilled emotions. You could use them to anoint your amulet. What that means is it's gonna let you move a notable on your passive tree for free. This is a really, really big deal. If you get the right distilled emotions, you can get to any notable on your tree, and it doesn't matter how far it is. This further adds to the customization options of the skill trees for Path of Exile 2, but we'll get more into that on another video. The other thing you could do with distilled emotions is you could use them on maps to make them delirious. Another mechanic is called the expedition. This mechanic stuck out to me. On maps that are expeditions, you'll find Kalguran settlers, and they're trying to unbury treasure. And how are they gonna do that? By using explosives. But by you getting loot, it also will unearth monsters as well. Kill the monsters, get the treasure. You'll also find special currency that you could trade with them for special items. Also, big warning, there are things called remnants in these dig sites. Make sure that you read what remnants are there before you blow things up, because those buffs on those monsters are no joke. Next, you have precursor tablets. So these tablets will interact with the towers that you find on your atlas. What they'll do is it gives you the option to increase certain encounters that you find in your maps. If you like doing expeditions, well, there you go. Go and find some expedition tablets and put it into your tower. Another interesting thing is that certain towers will overlap on maps. So if you find a cluster of towers, boom, you could end up having a ton of different breach maps or a ton of different expedition maps. It's really up to you and how you want to, take care of that. And also you could craft those tablets. Now let's talk about realm gates. Realm gates are going to be used to take care of the final encounters for a lot of the mechanics that you see on the atlas. For expeditions, you have logbooks, King of the Mists for the ritual bosses, simulacrums for the delirium, and more. Currently, there's not a lot of information on this, but in the future, we will definitely dive deeper into it. And lastly, we have the Pinnacle bosses. According to developers, they're the biggest challenge in Path of Exile 2. They didn't give too much information on these. All we know is that when you find them on the atlas, you'll need to get 3 keys. And to get these keys, you're gonna have to defeat 3 different faction bosses. If you're looking for the faction bosses, they're gonna be across the atlas. They'll have 2 lieutenants guarding them on adjacent maps. But if you fail these fights, that will mean the faction's gonna move and you're gonna have to do it all over again. And if you defeat the Pinnacle boss, you'll get points for that special section of your atlas tree. This covers the end game so far for the early access of Path of Exile 2. It's a really good thing that when you play through a game or a game that you're anticipating already has a huge roadmap of what you'll be able to do at endgame to keep you consistently occupied and satisfied when you play through the game is really exciting. Me personally, I'm looking forward to the story of the campaign, which, I mean, any type of lore is going to get me hooked on something, but just seeing how in depth this end game is going to be. And it doesn't seem overly complicated. It gives you the mechanics, what you need to do to complete the mechanics, and what you get from the mechanics. I'm very happy about that. In the comments below, let me know what excites you most about the end game. I hope this video found a beginner out there or someone new to Path of Exile 2 and it made sense to them. Honestly, again, all I'm trying to do is get more people into playing the game because this is really cool. Thank you guys for watching the video. If you like this, share this with your friends, like it, of course, and subscribe to the channel. And I'll catch you guys on the next video.